sound.
So we are ready to go live.
All right, do it.
All right, we're now live.
A few minutes late, but we're good.
Yep, we are recording this live on Sunday, December 20. And so the day before the winter solstice.
Whoop, whoop.
The main episode will be going up for the podcast feed on Thursday, Christmas Eve this year.
All right.
So
how festive.
We have our tree here on the side that you can almost see a little bit of.
It's very pretty and it was very cheap. Thank you, thrift stores.
Lauren put a Santa hat on me, which works great with the headphones.
And by great, he means barely fits.
Yep. So let's go ahead and start.
Ho, ho, ho.
Atheist Nomads episode 386, War on Christmas 2020.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Justin, and joining you is Lauren.
The hoo-ha lady.
And this year, or it is time for this year's installment of The War on Christmas. Or The War on Christmas, or The War on the War on Christmas.
It's been ongoing.
And we've been doing a War on Christmas special every year for probably at least 6 years.
6 or 7?
I don't think the first year had one. It might have. But it started off as just being a few War on Christmas stories, usually some Bill O'Reilly freak out, and then it would expand
Kirk
out.
Cameron shows up.
And then it started expanding and expanding until it ended up just being its own episode.
Which we are more than happy to do.
Yeah, and instead of having War on Christmas stories throughout December, it just ended up being all of them all in one. And since Bill O'Reilly leaving Fox News, the War on Christmas has really died down.
Aw, less fodder for us.
Donald Trump getting elected president and having, this is now his 4th Christmas as president, has also quieted down the Christian freakout about happy holidays. But there was plenty of material that I was able to find. So, yay!
Yeah. Aw. Right? I mean, that's like a hooray for disease because we have medicine kind of thing.
All right, so we need to start off, though, with, I need to actually be recording the audio.
All right. That's all right. We'll redo it later if you want. Wait. Live!
Yeah. Okay, I've armed the channels.
Do you need me to turn my key so you can push the red button?
No.
Armed the channel torpedoes.
Atheist Nomads episode 386, War on Christmas 2020.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin, and joining me, Lauren.
Hello.
And this is our annual installment of the War on Christmas, or the War on the War on the War on Christmas. I don't think I ever get the correct number of wars on in that list, but who knows? It's hard to keep track of.
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Yeah.
5 or 6.
And we've been doing this for forever. It started off early on with the podcast with just random War on Christmas stories, usually some Bill O'Reilly freak out. And then eventually there ended up being enough stories that it ended up getting its own special episode as opposed to scattering them throughout December. And so that way, most of December ends up being Christmas free, and then there is the one that gets all of it. And in recent years, especially since Bill O'Reilly's ouster from Fox News, the amount of War on Christmas freakout has gone way down.
But it's still there.
It's still there. And this year, I found plenty with very little effort. So this will be fun. But before that, Lauren, what Christmas traditions did you grow up with?
Ooh.
Because you grew up in a Unitarian, non-religious, basically atheist, more or less family.
Yes.
So what was Christmas like in your home?
like many holidays, our Christmas was directly related to how my parents' Christian English descendants did their Christmas. So, with one caveat, and that is no Christmas tree until after December 14th, which was my dad's birthday.
Okay.
So, kind of kept the Christmas and my dad's birthday apart.
So shorter Christmas, but you still had the full...
Most of the decorations
American
were up,
Christmas.
and, Mom started playing Christmas carols long before that. So,
Okay.
she has CDs of Christmas music that she drives us crazy with in November.
Okay, but in a lot of ways, very similar with how we're going to be doing with Kylie, where there's plenty of Christmas there.
Yep, lots of secular stuff to enjoy, some explanation of, the myths behind it.
Oh, and of course, I am drinking eggnog.
Yep. Yes. And, but it always started, Christmas morning, kids wake up, get super excited, and go check out their stockings. Stockings usually had a toy, that nasty sugar ribbon candy. That's so gross. The candy corn of Christmas is what I call them. And an orange. And that's a very...
Mm-hmm.
That was an old tradition. That came from my dad's side, I'm sure. And then those oranges will go to the breakfast. So you have sliced oranges with powdered sugar, or you just eat the orange as is, something like that. The presents came after breakfast. So if we were up at 6 a.m., my parents would probably be up closer to 8. These days, 9 or 10. So breakfast is a late breakfast, and it's much bigger. So it just drove you crazy as a kid to see the presents and not being able to touch them until much later in the morning. And then finally you'd have breakfast, and then you'd go and open presents. There's usually a Santa's helper who passes out presents based on names, so it's not just a big clamoring. That's the adult version. The kid version, I'm sure, was us just shoving each other under the Christmas tree.
All right.
And pretty simple.
Right.
Christmas Eve was always oyster stew and chili for those who didn't like oysters. That's based off of an old English thing, I think, having some kind of seafood chowder the night before Christmas.
That sounds pretty English.
It sounds sounds legit. And that was pretty much our Christmas. How about yours?
So mine you can easily divide up into 2 different time periods. There was Vale and Grants Pass. Vale, I don't remember many of the Christmases. We were dirt poor on food stamps, surviving on welfare and disability checks, living in a mobile home on my grandparents' farm. So Christmas was like...
Dirt farmers.
The 2 Christmas presents I remember from that time period would have been when I was, I think, 6 and 7. One year, I got a sleeping bag. And it was so exciting because it meant I was actually going to sleep on my own camping, not with my mom.
That's a pretty big one.
That was huge. And the other one was a chemistry set.
Oh, what? That's awesome.
Like I was 6 or 7 years old and I got a chemistry set.
Dude, my dad got a chemistry set when he was like that age.
Yeah.
In fact, we still have it. I have it out in the garage. One of those molecule put together things. And then
this one was canisters of chemicals.
Oh yeah, he got the little some of the glass container. I think my mom did too.
So
that was really popular.
So like my older brother and I would play around with it and mix stuff up and make stuff, and that was pretty cool. But our Christmas even then was still
Oh, Kylie just walked into the room and she sees Santa Daddy. That
and
was
is stomping.
Kylie, I told you we were going to be doing something. Daddy's wearing the hat. Yeah, do you want the hat back? And she's gone. All right.
But there was the abject poverty period where we would have, like, everybody got a present, and we would have a big Christmas dinner at my grandparents' across the yard. Then there was my mom going back to work, which meant she had to work Christmas because she was a LPN working in a nursing home. And so she, with working Christmas, that moved Christmas to Christmas Eve.
Okay. So I bet that happens to most kids who have a parent working on Christmas.
Because she was specifically working day shift, but most nurses in nursing homes do 4 on, 2 off, where you're getting your 40 hours in every week, and it rotates through, and everybody gets weekends off, but nobody gets every weekend off. And so that started, and then we moved to Grants. My parents, there was a divorce, and at some point in there, and then my mom got married again, and we moved to Grants Pass and had more money. At that point, we moved from abject poverty to lower middle class. So Christmas got a lot more presents.
Wow, that must have been quite the... Did that help ease the transition at all?
No, it really didn't. Nope.
Because it's not about the toys.
And it wasn't... I couldn't tell the difference. What
can beat a sleeping bag?
Right, yeah. So then it was, with my mom working nursing homes, there was Christmas Eve most years, and especially with Christmas rotating around through the calendar, it wouldn't necessarily line up with when my mom had days off. And we would usually make a point of trying to get Thanksgiving off early on, at least, to go visit my grandparents. And then I think even that fell apart when we stopped making the trip over because winters can really suck driving across Oregon.
Christmas Valley.
Yeah. So then, but it usually ended up being most of the presents were on Christmas Eve, and some would be Christmas Day. Usually you'd save like one bigger item for Christmas Day. One of the things that also added to that was being in a blended family at that point. My dad's kids would have Christmas with their mom. Also, they were adults, so they'd usually have their own Christmases. And so they were all having to schedule in 3
Right, you were the only
4.
baby.
Yeah. They were having to...
baby being 8.
Yeah, right. So they were having to schedule in, 3 or 4 Christmases. And so we had one year where all of my presents were kept until the big Christmas with a bunch of people at the house. Ended up being super awkward with literally half of the presents in the building being for me. Everybody else had one, and I had all of mine. And so we changed that to where if the big family Christmas was Christmas Eve, then I'd be opening up my main presents Christmas Day, but usually the main family Christmas would be Christmas Day, and I'd do most of my Christmas presents on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Then I got to being a teenager and maybe even into college, and I decided that it was that we needed to get the Jesus back in Christmas.
Hoo boy.
That this secular Christmas I'd been growing up with was an abomination, and we needed to fix that.
So basically you moved out and discovered that other people did it more religiously?
No, not really. It's more that in the Adventist church, Christmas and Easter had been rejected as
neo-pagan
Catholic versions of pagan holidays.
Worse than pagan. Catholic version of pagan.
So they'd been basically rejected by the Adventist church. Well, that was starting to soften in the 90s and especially in the 2000s. And so I was growing up where Christmas was often the week that everybody skipped church. Like the opposite of Catholic, where that's when you get almost the highest attendance. Catholics
like the
usually
only
have the
time
highest
they
with
go
Easter.
to church.
Yeah, Christmas and Easter Christians. Adventists are the opposite. or were the opposite at that time. It was, you don't go to church on Christmas and Easter. You keep that as a secular family holiday because it's not religious. The religious part is a bastardization of pagan holidays. Well, that was starting to change. I was a theology major, so I'm pretty sure I was in college by this point. I was a theology major. I figured, okay, there is a Christian core here. We should try to bring that in. And so I sit down in the chair Christmas Eve night trying to find the nativity story in the Bible.
Whoops! Spoiler alert.
It's not there.
It ain't there.
So that segues into dusting off the degree. The nativity story. The nativity story that we all know is, the angel appears to Mary and then to Joseph, and then Mary gets pregnant.
The Peanuts version.
And then the census is decreed, so Mary and Joseph pack up from Nazareth and ride on a donkey to Bethlehem. There's no room in the inn, so they stay in the manger. And then Jesus is born, and there's the star and the angels and the wise men. And then King Herod wants all the baby boys to be killed, so they flee to Egypt, and then they move to Nazareth after Herod dies. That is not a story in the Bible. That is a combining of two very distinct stories. So let me walk you through the two stories that are there. There is the Matthew story, which is trying to say Jesus was born and everything about it fulfilled prophecy. So that's where you get Mary's cousin Elizabeth, who's really old, getting pregnant, and her husband, who's one of the priests in the temple, becoming mute because he doesn't believe God. And then John the Baptist is born as their
This
son.
is all news to me. I have no idea what this is.
And then when Mary gets pregnant from the Holy Spirit, she tells Elizabeth, who had just gotten a miraculous knocking up. So, yay, they all have this fun, happy, joy. Actually, this isn't even John was born yet. Elizabeth is pregnant, Mary becomes pregnant, and then the two babies are jumping at joy in each other's presence in their mom's wombs.
Okay, legit. It's been felt. Babies do that.
Yeah. But kind of in a way where John is like bowing to Jesus already.
I'll take care of it.
Okay. All right, so Lauren is leaving the live stream, and she shall be back soon.
So you keep going.
So the baby's jumping for joy. Okay, so then after that, and now we got Rocco barking. Okay, so John jumps for joy and, tries to bow in the womb to Jesus. And then John's born, and Zacharias is able to speak again, his father. And then Mary gives birth at their home, living with her fiance in Bethlehem. Like they're in Bethlehem already, and they have Jesus in their home in Bethlehem. And the only travel that happened was when Mary went to travel to Jerusalem to visit her cousin Elizabeth. There wasn't any other travel. And then the wise men see the star in the sky, and the wise men, they're astrologers. The Magi is a way of mispronouncing magician. these are three magicians, three astrologers from Persia who look into the skies and they see a new star and it's super bright, and clearly that must mean that the Son of God was born, which to three Zoroastrian astrologers, that would have been pretty weird. And so they pack up their gifts to be given to the new baby king, and they travel across the Middle East, and they go to Jerusalem. So they bypass Bethlehem altogether and go to Jerusalem, which if you're going from Persia, Bethlehem's right on the way to Jerusalem. But they pass it, they go to Jerusalem, they see King Herod and ask about where they can find the newborn king. And he tells them he doesn't know, but they need to find out and come back and tell him. So they continue traveling, they make it to Bethlehem, they present their gifts at Mary and Joseph's house in Bethlehem. And they warn them that Herod is up to no good, and they sneak off back home to Persia, and Herod decrees, or an angel appears to Joseph and tells them that Herod will have all boys killed, so they flee off to Egypt. And Herod kills all the baby boys in either Bethlehem or all of Judea. And then they, after Herod dies, they pack up and move to Nazareth to make sure that his successor doesn't try to hunt down Jesus. That's the Matthew story. The Luke story is Quirinius is governor in Syria. He decrees that a census needs to be taken and that everybody needs to return to their ancestral home to register in the census. So Mary is already pregnant. The angel had already appeared to both Joseph and Mary. They pack up and travel to Bethlehem, which is Joseph's ancestral home because he's descended from David. And they get there, and because everybody's traveling back to their ancestral home, there's nowhere for them to stay. And so they get put up in a barn, and Jesus is born, and they use the trough for a cradle. The angel appears, the shepherds come. The camera was drifting with footsteps. And it's the angel, the shepherds. Yeah, the shepherds come. And then they get Jesus purified at the temple, and they pack up and they go back to Nazareth. They just go back home. Those two stories are very, very different. The only commonalities are angels appeared to both, or an angel appeared to both Mary and Joseph. Mary was a virgin when she conceived Jesus through the Holy Spirit, when God raped her. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and he grew up in Nazareth. There's not a single other detail that is the same. The star is only found in Matthew's story. The wise men are only in Matthew's story. The shepherds are only in Luke's story.
Yeah, well, that's how people are going to do it. If you're given two very different stories of the same event, they're going to conflagurate, whatever that word is. Conflate them, and that's where we get the modern Christmas card version of Jesus.
Like the typical nativity scene of shepherds and angels and wise men in a manger. Even according to either story in the Bible, that never happened. That never could have happened.
That is weird. The commercialization of that nativity scene is kind of boggling.
It really is. Especially since even in Matthew's story, it's implied that once people started leaving, they moved into a house because they had business to do. Well, actually, no. In Matthew's story, They lived in a house. Like, there is no wise men and manger. Those are different stories. And like the amount of difference between them, it's clear that there were a couple agreed upon details, and the authors of Matthew and Luke both made up their own stories. One of the fascinating things about the two stories is not only do they have numerous conflicting details, among those conflicting details, Quirinius, the governor of Syria, and Herod, king of Judea, were not contemporaries. Herod died like 5 years before Quirinius became governor of Syria. Beyond that, the historical events that each story tries to pin itself to, Herod slaughtering all the boys in Judea or just in Bethlehem, didn't happen. We know it didn't happen because Josephus wrote detailed, like chapter after chapter, about Herod's bloodlust and slaughter of innocents.
Yeah,
But
he did a lot of bad.
The slaughter of the innocents was not killing all of these baby boys. It was Herod killing some of his own children because he was afraid that they might rise up and overthrow him. The Luke story ties it to Quirinius being governor and a census. And while there was a census while Quirinius was governor, the point of any Roman census was to work out taxation. And when you're working out taxation, you want to know where people live.
Not where they were parents or grandparents or
right.
ancestors were born. 'Cause
Yep.
that doesn't make sense.
It's the same reason why, like,
It doesn't make census.
like in a modern American census, like the one we had, they do care about where you were born. They mostly care about where you live. The key thing is how many people live in a certain place, because there is money, lots of money effects on that. And the Romans loved doing censuses, and they loved to know where their people were so that they could know how much money they could get from each territory. And if this had been an actual census, okay, and also, even with that,
Good job.
yeah, it's just the whole thing. The stories are completely different, completely incompatible with each other. The standard nativity story is crazy.
It is crazy, and I happen to have the history of it right here. It is based off of in 1223.
Okay.
Saint Francis of Assisi.
Francis of Assisi.
Francis of Assisi. He was just inspired by his trip to the Holy Land, loved the Feast of Christmas, and decided to start reenactments of the nativity scene with elements from both stories thrown in. Years go by, and it becomes even more multicultural.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, the ones that we see are kind of based on 1700s Italy.
Okay.
But yeah, that 1223, it was supposedly the first nativity, and that was specifically the live reenactments. Nowadays, that's pretty rare. In the United States, I've never seen a live one. I've seen the live animals.
Live nativities do happen. But yeah, they're not particularly
I've never
common.
seen anybody with like people sitting out there for hours.
They happen.
Ugh,
They do happen.
dedicated.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's quite a few years after
Yeah.
Matthew and Luke.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, the nativity story.
The more you know.
Which one?
Ding.
So apparently it's the 1230 Francis of Assisi nativity is.
There you go.
Not Matthew, not Luke.
Bring that up at Christmas
Francis.
dinner. Your Christian family. You could do the, well, actually, and then push your glasses up the bridge of your nose. Classic.
All right, well, we have news.
Yay, here we go. Let's dig into the meat.
And we're going to start off with one that I've been holding on to for a couple months now.
Oh.
It seemed like not worth covering, but it's Christmas.
Aw.
And this is 2020. It's the year that keeps giving. Melania Trump has been getting roasted on Twitter over her Christmas tree. Yes, she's been getting flack over the 2020 White House Christmas tree.
Well, of course, she's been given flack every year she's done a Christmas tree.
Uh-huh. So this one is nice and traditional, and people have been mocking her because, well, it's... In past years, she's done...
Kind of avant-garde.
Really weird, decorative, like super decorative, focusing on style, not on tradition. And this year is very traditional, that final year. Well, also, people are giving her crap because that tree was delivered a few days after the audio was leaked about her 2018 comments about how she feels about Christmas.
I'm working like a...
Whoops, let's get that louder.
I know. Christmas stuff that, who gives a f***?
Let's start that over.
I know. Christmas stuff that, who gives a f***? I'm working like a my ass off. I know. Christmas stuff that, who gives a f*** about Christmas stuff and decoration, but I need to do it, right? Yeah, but correct? 100%. You have no choice. And then I do it, and I say that I'm working on Christmas, planning for the Christmas, and they said, oh, what about the children, that they were separated? Give me a break.
Yeah.
Wow.
So people keep giving her flack about her Christmas decorations, and her response is, why do I give a fuck about Christmas?
I think any joy that season may have been brought, that may have brought her, was sucked dry, was sucked out by the vampire, I hate to say it, but the vampiric media that attacked her for everything she did. She did not want to be first lady, for one. She never did. You could tell the day he freaking got inaugurated. She was like, I did not marry him for this.
Yep. She just wanted
a comfy lifestyle and to be done with it. But no, she had to do it. She did it. She hates it.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what she does, she's going to be wrong because of that, unfortunately. I do feel bad for her. But at the same time, she's also a non-empathetic, iron cold-hearted bitch.
Right. Well, and she went on to, in that clip, to describe that, she doesn't give, and she does these Christmas decorations, and if they don't complain about the Christmas decorations, and they complain about, well, why aren't you doing anything about the children in cages? And then she says, well, she doesn't care about those fucking kids, and then goes on about eventually getting to, she was just trolling the libs. They pissed her off, so she's going to piss them off.
Which, that works. But it puts her down as one of the most disgraceful first ladies in history.
Yep.
First ladies hold a position of power, of influence, and of this strange adoration that the president is immune to. You have to dig into the president, and you have to make sure that he knows that everything he does wrong is very wrong.
Yeah.
The first ladies, however, are gracious, and they're the hostesses, and they're pretty, and they are lovely, and everything they do is just so nice.
Right.
And that's how the media has always portrayed them, will always portray them. And then Melania steps in, who doesn't want anything to do with it, who's a freaking supermodel, who could have done a lot of good for a lot of people, and she checked out.
She did a thing on online bullying.
That was sad.
And
That was trolling the libs.
About it. Yeah.
And with a husband like Trump, what are you going to do?
Well, like you look at Michelle Obama, her big...
Oh, my God.
She got a lot of flack from, well, Fox News and Republicans, but her big initiative was getting kids to eat more fruits and vegetables,
healthier lifestyle,
and improving access to fresh food.
Yeah,
trying to address food deserts that are a huge issue for a lot of especially black children. And you look at past first ladies, there have been fitness programs, and a lot of them have been diet focused. But Laura Bush was always praised, and everybody liked her.
Yeah.
Regardless of what people thought about
this happens
George.
With the governors, too. The first ladies of the states are oftentimes, they're associated with this person who's doing these sometimes awful things, but they themselves are the peacekeepers and can't really be blamed for anything that they do because their role is pure charity.
Yeah.
That's all they're there for. If they don't take up the mantle of being a champion for some kind of charity, then they disappear and you just don't see them.
Well, and if you think that's a sexist thing, if you look at England...
I mean, it is.
But if you look at England, Queen Elizabeth has her duties. Her husband can't have a job because he is the prince consort. And so he had to figure out...
What are you going to do if all you are allowed to do is some kind of volunteer work?
He had to quit his job in the Royal Navy and find causes to be involved with. And that's... The spouses of rich and powerful people usually find philanthropy to keep busy. First ladies just do it with extra national spotlight.
Yeah.
Melania has been... Now, okay, I also want to give her...
I just always I think of Lady Bird Johnson and her beautifying of the highways as was kind of her champion. And I'm like, we need another one of those back because have you seen those billboards?
Yeah,
and the cheatgrass. Let's bring that back. I like that.
But
that would be mine.
We should also give Melania some credit here. She didn't want the job. No first lady. Nobody grows up wanting to be first lady of the United States. Okay, there's probably a few, but that's rare. She got stuck with the position. She had really big shoes to fill from people who were much more capable and prepared to do that. And was having to do try to find something she could do that her husband wouldn't undermine.
Which is why the cyberbullying didn't go anywhere.
Right. And the Christmas decorations she tried to put her own flair on it.
Because she was basing it off of the fashion that she was familiar with. The white hallways with the red trees, that was a very powerful image.
Yeah.
It was just really almost grotesque. So really easy to vilify. She was just trying to do something different.
And
it doesn't change the fact that she's, probably a terrible person. But
right. But it's low-hanging fruit to give somebody crap about their choice in how they decorate their home for the holidays. And whether you like it or not, for the last 4 years, the White House has been Melania Trump's home, and she has the right to decorate it however the fuck she sees fit.
Yeah.
Until January 20.
We can blame Jackie O.
But one interesting take on this that I have a clip from. The View gave her so much shit.
If there's an antithesis to Fox News, it is The View.
This was over her getting the most traditional tree ever right after the audio is released. And they of course did play the clip of her saying that she doesn't fucking care about Christmas.
The fact that she kept saying it over and over again was pretty funny.
But here's one clip.
I'm in the Christmas spirit. Joy to the world, the Trumps are gone. Let us receive Joe Biden. Look, you know, I mean, this tape we heard of Melania was really so ironic and absurd and ridiculous because. You know, how long have we been hearing Donald Trump talk about the war on Christmas, blah, 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 the war on Christmas? Well, it turns out the whole time the war on Christmas was coming from inside the White House, and no wonder she decorated the White House with those trees that looked like the Handmaids that one year. She didn't enjoy it. What can I tell you? Be best. Be gone.
Yeah, like you said, it's low-hanging fruit.
Really is.
But she's got to do it. At least it's the last year.
Yep.
At least now she's free to divorce him and or wait for him to die in peace.
Yep. Or pick up the pace on slowly poisoning him.
Yeah, she really needs to get that going.
Now I have been definitely
that's good eggnog. It's better now that the booze is you suck down most of the booze.
I've been kind of bemoaning the loss of Bill O'Reilly for the War on Christmas episode, but it looks like he has a successor.
For Fuck It, We're Doing It Live.
Tucker
will always
Carlson.
be remembered.
And here we go.
Tucker.
If death is inevitable, and that may be the one thing you're not allowed to say in this country, but it's still true, then maybe we should pause before we destroy the living in the name of trying to eliminate it. Politicians understand this threat. They've figured out that Christmas is bigger than they are, and therefore it's a threat to them. Better cancel it. And in fact, they're trying hard.
I get what he was saying at the beginning, but then he said something about they see it as a threat, so let's cancel it. Nobody sees Christmas as a threat.
Right. So he's this was like a minute and a half into his rant.
Okay.
So it started off
that was
with,
just a weird jump that he made in logic.
Yeah.
There was no logic there.
So it started off with Christmas is awesome, Christmas is amazing, the decorations, the feast, the family, blah, blah, the decorations, then it jumps to power hungry politicians, and then he jumps to in a time of crisis, people become more religious, and they need a time like Christmas for them to really reach back to the sweet baby Jesus with the he doesn't say sweet baby Jesus,
I know, but
yeah,
that's a thing.
He's wanting people to reach back to sweet baby Jesus with the shepherds and angels and wise men, which again,
pure
not an actual story, but yeah.
He wants to go back to the good old-fashioned, wholesome, the way you see Christmas in a way that only a 6-year-old can.
Yep.
And what he fails to realize is that has nothing to do with the politicians.
Well, so he's coming at it from, I would actually say, a pretty reasonable point briefly there. Like that very brief sentiment of when life sucks and it's scary and it's difficult, people are going to reach for something comforting. Heck,
in the middle of World War II, there were ceasefires over Christmas dinner.
World War I. That was World War I. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. People need something. Christmas is traditionally a time of getting together with family. Mm-hmm. And, all this other stuff. Which is fine, except for the people who don't celebrate it.
Right. But he has to take it further as, no, this is to help. They need Christmas this year so that people can find God to help them through this difficult time, which that's bullshit. And then he jumps into the politicians are trying to take away Christmas because they know that people won't need them if they have a good Christmas and they find the sweet baby Jesus. That is what he was saying. It is worse than it seems, even.
Yeah, it wasn't an attack on politicians at all. It ended up just being a coming to Jesus moment.
Come to Jesus and attacking the politicians that are a part of the fucking Trump administration.
Yeah.
These are political appointees. Yes, many of them have been career, but they're in political appointee positions at this point. Dr. Fauci is a career part of the NIH, but he's in a political appointee position that just keeps getting reappointed by every president, regardless of party, because he's
that good.
awesome. Yes. And he's trying to take away Christmas.
Well, Obama did. I'm pretty sure Bush did. And Clinton definitely did.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wait, I'm seeing a pattern here. Everybody tries to take away Christmas when, even atheists are trying to take away Christmas. They're trying to take that joy away from you. No, they just recognize that that's something that you can do in your own home, at your churches where it's okay. But
except this year.
Okay, this year's an exception to everything.
Right,
okay?
which he's trying to say the politicians are taking away Christmas this year in the name of safety.
Oh, I just realized I could crochet a giant mask for the tree. Anyway,
Yeah.
no, yeah, God damn it.
The experts, not the politicians, the actual medical and scientific experts
scientists
are saying is that if we have large gatherings at Christmas, then there will be a lot more funerals by old calendar Christmas. January 6, 7, or 8, depending on the church.
It's a shame that they haven't been advertising the influx of COVID as a relation to Thanksgiving. Because if people realize that what they did at Thanksgiving directly contributed to the huge spike in cases that has been going on, then maybe they would rethink Christmas. But they kind of haven't been. They've been saying this is the worst that it's ever been, and it's going up, but they're not saying because of the travel, because of the exposure.
It's not just because of, but like looking at our county level data here, we were in, it was rising in October. Through October, we were in that 500 to 700 range. Through November, we were in that 500 to 700 per 100,000 range for active cases. And then Thanksgiving happened. And then the numbers were pretty stagnant, but rising, but not quickly. And then they jumped to 1,200 per 100,000. Like we literally, there was, as was predicted, 14 days after Thanksgiving, we will see a huge spike in numbers. 14 days after Thanksgiving, we went from about 700 cases per 100,000 to over 1,000 per 100,000. That doesn't seem necessarily huge, but when you're reaching the point where more than 1% of the population have a known active case of COVID, that's big.
Yeah.
And the hospitalizations are following, because what was exactly was predicted was another 7 days after the numbers start to spike is when the hospitalizations spike.
Kylie wishes for me to go see something in her room.
Okay.
Kylie, you want to say hi?
Hi.
Aw, you're so sweet. Can you wave at the camera? Good girl. Aw, look at this beauty. Ah, perfect kid.
The one person watching got to see that.
Aw.
My room has a fashion row.
Okay.
All right. All right. In Thousand Oaks, California, Kirk Cameron, child TV star from Growing Pains turned radical Christian who makes Christian movies now, summoned hundreds of people together in a parking lot to gather and sing hymns with almost no one wearing a mask. Doing what is literally the definition of a super spreader event. Maskless people singing. Like the first super spreader identified was a choir practice in Washington State. Church choir practice where somebody was sick and didn't know it and singing, you're belting it out, you're really expelling the contents of your lungs, including viruses. And Thousand Oaks, California is in Southern California, and Southern California has a very high infection rate right now. So bringing hundreds of people together means several of those people had COVID. It was outdoors, which is probably a little better, but several hundred people with at least several being positive, spreading the virus around. And I do want to go back a little bit with the Thanksgiving thing. It's, if you look at most government recommendations from the various states, the CDC and the like, most consider it to be okay if two households are coming together, especially if you've been quarantining like as a pod, a unit, quarantining together in your own bubble, or if you quarantine beforehand so that you don't spread it to each other. But if you have a small number of people you have contact with, then that risk is much lower. If you're looking at, say, the Treasure Valley right now, where we are, that 1.2% current active case rate with a 25% test positivity rate would suggest there is probably more like 5 or 6% of the population are currently have an active positive case. That means if two households get together, the chances, especially if they've been being careful, the chances that somebody coming together out of those two households has COVID is low. If you get 20 people together, so your extended family, like you would in most years, then the chances, if you've got 5% of the population has COVID, chances are, on average, one person out of those 20 has COVID. And that one person who has it and isn't yet symptomatic will spread it to everybody else. So it's not that you can't have Christmas gatherings. Keep them very, very, very small. Be smart. Do whatever quarantining you need to make that happen, but keep it small. We are going to Lauren's parents, and we are being a little extra careful compared to our normal carefulness. And they're also, well, they're basically in full-time quarantine anyway. And it's just going to be us and them. We're keeping it small, we're keeping it simple, and we're all doing everything right to minimize risk of exposure. And with 5 people total, the chances of 1 out of those 5 having COVID is much lower, even just from a pure the pure law of averages. When you look at people who do always wear a mask, those people are less likely than that average. And so even out of that 1 in 20 example, if you always wear a mask, you're probably more in the 1 in 30 or 1 in 40. That doesn't mean you should have a larger gathering. That means it's a little bit lower risk, but keep the gatherings really small. Keep it smart. Don't make mistakes. But Kirk Cameron's gathering, like that is exactly the perfect example of you get that many people together, especially doing things like singing. Somebody's going to have COVID, be belting it out and spewing virus across everyone. That's the exact kind of event that's going to get dozens of people infected, who will then go on to infect dozens more. Yeah. So, just in time for the war on Christmas, we have... Whoa. No. Whoops, I came across an old article. I'm not going to keep that one.
How? Oh.
10 years old, to be exact. It had the 0. I missed the, yeah. I'm deleting that. We got a Grinch story.
Mr. Grinch.
In Greensboro, North Carolina. Nope. In Burlington, North Carolina, a family was trying to help spread Christmas cheer. They had a big lights display, and they were collecting cash. They had a donation box out, so people could drive by and drop money in.
Okay.
And then they were going to give that to charity.
Cool.
So really, really cool. They caught it on video when somebody drove up and stole the box.
Oh.
Literally grabbed the entire box. There was about $300 in cash in the box. So not a huge amount, but
Dude,
that was
that's
$300 that could have helped a couple families in need have a better Christmas. So, of course, people did step up. A local roofing company heard about the incident and agreed to match donations up to $3,000.
Wow.
And it is definitely expected that they will be getting that. So.
Yeah. I don't know why it's assumed that the person that stole the box probably didn't need it. We don't know the situation that person was in.
Right.
But for some reason, there's this deep-seated suspicion that whoever drove up and stole that money did it because it was easy and not because they needed it. And that's where the indignation comes from. It's this idea is like you took money out of the hands of somebody who could have used it better. Mm-hmm. When in all reality, that family could have just kept the money.
Yeah.
You were basically paying them for the entertainment that their lights were bringing anyway.
And assuming that they will be giving something to someone or...
it was a Grinchy thing to do. And if they caught it on video, they know who did it.
It was at night. It was dark. They couldn't make out the face.
Okay, well.
Or a license plate.
Maybe that person's kids are really going to appreciate that.
In Wisconsin, the Department of Health, and actually our next 2 stories are from Wisconsin. The Department of Health has a urgent holiday message, and this one has nothing to do with coronavirus.
Okay.
Or even a virus. The concern here is salmonella or E. coli. There is a tradition for the holidays in Wisconsin of eating what's called a cannibal sandwich.
Mm-hmm, yep.
The cannibal sandwich is usually served at holiday parties and other gatherings with raw ground beef with on bread with sliced onions, salt, and pepper.
That's just, I mean, it's gross, but that's the point of it. Right?
When you look at meat, raw meat is sterile until you cut it. And in particular, where it can get contamination in is in the butchering process. While the cow is hanging upside down and they are opening up its bowels and the contents of the intestines spill over everything. So when you cook a steak, the inside of the steak is probably safe if it's been kept at safe temperatures. You just have to sear the shit out of the edges, which by the time you get it cooked, you have seared the shit out of the edges, and that's safe. Ground meat, on the other hand, has edge pieces mixed throughout.
And tons more surface area for bacteria to thrive on.
Yep. And so undercooked ground meat is where a lot of infections come in for that very reason. Feces.
I'm
spread
curious
down,
as
it
to
gets
the
washed
history
down,
of this
and they shred
cannibal
it.
sandwich.
And
how long has this been going on? It does sound like something that you set up at a holiday party. You get everybody drunk and you dare each other to take a bite.
Well, they have 8 outbreaks on record in Wisconsin since 1986. The worst was in 1994 with 150 people.
Okay, well, okay. At least it's not that big of a deal. And the people who do it deserve it. Because it's raw ground beef.
150 people getting salmonella poisoning. Several of those would be going to the hospital.
Yeah.
This is a year where you don't want anybody extra going to the hospital.
Don't. Health advisory, don't walk on ice. Health advisory,
Yes.
Don't go out if there's an inversion. Health advisory, don't do anything that might, you know what? Sit when you take a shower. Don't stand.
Yeah.
Don't get on a ladder. Burn those motherfuckers.
And Wisconsin is one of the states that is having a particularly bad, compared to other states, coronavirus outbreak, with their hospitals in particularly bad shape. And yes, don't eat fucking raw ground beef.
I hear that aged steak is really good, though.
Aged steak is very different than raw ground beef,
It
and
starts
you're
out
still
raw.
cooking it. With aged steak, you cut off the mold and then you cook it.
Oh, that is not the version that I've seen.
I have heard
There must be some. It's called something else then, but it is raw.
Oh.
And they do, I thought it was a version of aging it that actually, it's not the mold. It's maybe it's
more of
like
a fermentation.
freezer. It's something like that. Yeah.
Kind of like stinky fish.
Yeah.
Or,
You let it sit for a long time, and apparently it's like the best way to have steak ever.
Huh.
If you can, stomach it.
Wow.
Anyway, that's fun and pleasant to talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
Makes me hungry for a burger. No, it doesn't.
No, that's gross.
Now we're going to have Swedish meatballs, and we're going to have to...
Keeping with... And these are ones that I lost the links for, so... God damn it. Whoops, that's not the site I wanted.
Oh, I wanted to mention, too, bringing it back to the Christmas traditions that we spoke about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
One nice thing about you being Unitarian is that I got exposed to a lot of different traditions, because it seemed like every year they did something different. So we did the Swedish St. Lucia thing where the eldest girl wore a crown of candles and got to walk down the aisle with all the girls dressed in white robes. The boys wore giant cone hats made out of paper. That was weird. We did Kwanzaa. We did Hanukkah. We did traditional, let's see here. We did solstice, so we did a lot of pagan stuff for Christmas. Christmas time. Music from all over. We had like African Christmas music performed. We had traditional handbells, all sorts of stuff. It was really cool. If you want to expose your kid to multiculturalism, check out your local Unitarian church and see Fellowship, sorry, and see what they're doing. And they might have some really cool stuff on the docket for like Christmas time, month of December.
All right. Well, FFRF is where the next quite a few stories are coming from. The first one being
Christmas time, the lawyer's favorite season.
Yeah. Andrew Seidel's done an op-ed in the paper. They've been writing complaints to the state government there in Wisconsin quite a bit because the state decided to not allow any holiday displays in the Capitol Rotunda. The reason being it's closed to the public because of the pandemic.
I was going to say, you don't want people gathering around a rotunda to look at decorations.
Right.
They did here. And it is gorgeous. Mrs. Little did a really good job of
nice.
It makes it look very natural, like natural looking pine trees with the little, but they opened it up for a media day, I think, and then they did a whole bunch of photography and stuff. People still aren't allowed in there, I don't think. But
well, and like we had the Festival of Trees this year where it was
online.
all online. They had the same space set up.
But you can't go to
pictures.
the rotunda and go like door to door to each representative's and check out their decorations. That's not possible this year.
So in Wisconsin, they decided no decorations. And then 2 representatives put up their Christmas trees, being sure to make them specifically Christmas trees.
Yep.
In a public space, not allowing any other viewpoints to be represented.
Yeah.
This is one where, in all practicality, it's a minor issue because it's close to the public. But on the other hand, it's still exposed to employees. And government employees shouldn't be forced to deal with religion at work. Kylie's just off camera waving. She keeps leaning out of frame. Someone's tired.
Oh, look at that. This is the floppy toddler.
Yep.
Being shown here by Kylie Williams Studley. Okay.
Who needs a nap.
Who needs a nap?
No, not that nap.
All right, so FFRF in standard form has put up quite a few decorations, displays. They've got Libertyville. Okay, I need to take Rocco. Hold on. Whoop. Uh-oh. All right, so they have a solstice display in. They've done solstice and Bill of Rights nativity displays in Illinois, New Jersey, Warren, Michigan, Eugene, Oregon, and New Hampshire. And yeah, for the most part, these have gone fine. Like the one in Eugene is a solstice banner where there was a go to church for this Christmas banner last year. Eugene is following it pretty good. Do what, if you allow people to put stuff up, allow people to put stuff up. And so far, everything's been fine except for the display in Warren, Michigan, where they went with their Keep Saturn in Saturnalia banner, and it was up for just a few days, right at an intersection. Looks like it's in a park, and somebody stole it. So a complaint has been filed with the police, and likely nothing is going to happen. And so that covers those. We have the Faith Church of Lafayette, Indiana, went with a interesting take on their annual living nativity that they have been doing every year since 1991. And they are still doing it this year, except now it's a drive-through event. So previously it was all walk-through, and this year you can drive by and see the live people in the nativity. Most churches who are still doing nativities are opting to not go with live versions this year, but this one did decide a way to try to keep it up. So that's interesting. And today, day of recording, today, the day of recording, Sunday, December 20, was a day of prayer in both Nebraska and Mississippi. In both cases, the governors declared it a day of prayer. Well, in Mississippi, it was a day of prayer, humility, and fasting. And in Nebraska, just a day of prayer. In both cases, for relief from the pandemic. Now, I hope these pandemic-based days of prayer are encouraging people to privately pray for relief, because if they are encouraging people to have gatherings and to pray together, to join in prayer together in the same place, that's risking having a very counteracting effect. And also, in both of these cases, just like the other ones we've talked about in recent weeks, stop ignoring the pandemic and actually do something. Issue a goddamn mask mandate. They work, they help, just fucking do it. And for our final story, we have both the crazy Deseret article and the Idaho Statesman article. On November 6th, at Albertson Stadium in Boise, the BYU football team and the Boise State football team played a game. At the end, they gathered at the 50-yard line together to pray. Both teams together. It turns out 85 to 90% of the Broncos players, the Boise State players, had been participating in a chapel service and pregame and postgame prayers with the team chaplain. That means 10 to 15% of the players were being left out. In response to this, FFRF sent a letter to Boise State University demanding the public university to terminate the chaplaincy program as a definite constitutional violation. And after some back and forth between the university and FFRF, what they agreed upon was that the chaplain would be available to players but not publicized, would not travel with the team, and not allowed to organize, praying with players at games. The chaplain would still be available for players who want to meet with him and pray with him, but not where he like it really sounds like it's going more the students have to initiate it, not the chaplain. Hopefully this will they worked out a good resolve on it all. But yeah, it is crazy to think that they had for a state university, they had a chaplain traveling with the football team.
Not really. What surprised me is that this hasn't happened before. They decided to dip their toes in to see if they were going to get in trouble.
I wouldn't be surprised if, with the stadiums empty, they figured they could get away with it and probably didn't realize the camera was still on.
And the
announcers were still talking.
Yeah, and didn't realize that it's not about the audience, it's about the students.
Yeah. Because, it could have been somebody watching who complained, or it could have been one of the students who complained. We don't know who actually complained to FFRF.
Somebody did.
And if it was a player, one of the 10 to 15% who was left out, and that's really saying something.
Yep.
So hopefully this will be better. What's funny was Deseret News' take on it. Written by their editorial board.
Yep. You can tell who the chaplain was representing.
Actually, probably not.
Well.
That probably wasn't a Mormon chaplain. I'm going to guess Baptist or Pentecostal. If you look at all the churches right around the university, that's a lot of Baptists and the like.
Yeah.
Evangelical churches right on the edge of campus. Deseret News' editorial board was pissed at Boise State University's, quote, lack of backbone.
They should have stood up to the FFRF and said, no, it's our God-given right to pray before a football game because God cares.
They said, quote, there's no problem with exercising religion on campus.
True. Privately.
Yep. There is a problem with government employees or people functioning in official capacities of a government institution organizing the practice and exercise of religion.
Yep.
Because of the point that you have an official organizing the practice of religion, you have an official dictating how that religion is exercised.
Yeah.
That is a thing that nobody wants to have happen.
You really don't. No.
Nobody wants that. All right, so that wraps up the news. Via contact, we have 2 messages.
Feedback.
Not via contact.
Feedback.
In contact, we have 2 messages. First up, we have a email from Avery. She wrote, hi, Dustin and Lauren. It's Avery again. I've been meaning to send you feedback for the last month or so. Your show is always at the front of my feed, and by the time I get home from work, I've completely forgotten.
I totally understand that.
Oh, yeah. That's happened to everybody. That's when you sneak away from sight and just send a quick message on your phone. It never really
Don't
works out well.
encourage delinquency.
Okay, wait till you get home. Yeah. Anyway, as she continued writing, as always, you're doing a great job, and I love the show, but I have one little nitpick.
Yes.
Occasionally, I hear the Satanic Temple and Church of Satan being conflated. This is a very common misconception. As a card-carrying member of the Satanic Temple, allow me to explain. The Satanic Temple are the ones erecting Baphomet statues and litigating for abortion rights in accordance with the tenets of bodily autonomy. The main philosophy is humanism with the iconography of Satan. TST are the good guys. The Church of Satan has a much more complicated...
Isn't that exactly what a Satanist would say?
Hold on.
I know, I'm just with the good guys. It's just so... anyway, sorry.
The Church of Satan has a much more complicated and problematic history filled with showmanship and schism. Anthony LaVey founded the Church of Satan in the 1960s, drawing inspiration from Aleister Crowley's ceremonial magic. LaVey himself stated that his form of Satanism is just Ayn Rand's philosophy with ceremony and ritual added. It's very clear that this form of Satanism is essentially LARPing libertarians and conceited contrarians. To learn more about the differences, see the Satanic Temple website. I will keep the link in the show notes. Also, your contact page appears to be broken. I can't click the button, but you have my permission to read this on the show.
Womp womp.
She included a screenshot, and thank you so much for the screenshot.
Yeah.
That was exactly what I needed to figure out that the plugin that I removed from the website because of trackers that it was putting on the website was what was providing the contact form. So I have instead restored that functionality with a different plugin to do the contact form that just runs locally on the server and doesn't add trackers.
And as for the wording of stuff, I'm almost positive that was me. I tend to not want to use the same wording over and over and over again, and so I will put a foot in my mouth. I've done it with people of color. Mm-hmm. I've done it with trans. I've done it with Satan. I apologize when I say something wrong. It's just, I have a hard time remembering the exact wording of some of this stuff. And like I said, I don't like repetitive speaking, so I tend to want to mix it up a little bit, and then I misspeak. So I apologize if I've offended people currently or in the past, and I will try to do better.
And as a kind of editorial policy on it, I won't cut out stuff like that often. Usually if
you catch it.
If I catch it, one, and two is if it's still clear what was being said.
And that's always been my argument when people tell me you misspoke, was like, well, yeah, but you get what I was saying. That's not a good argument for a lot of this stuff. But yeah, thanks for giving me the benefit of the doubt there.
For an example, in last week's episode, I made a mistake where when talking about the survey about people's willingness to get the COVID vaccine, the numbers I gave added up to way over 100%. I got one off. I think I said 55 instead of 45, or like I transposed it or something. And I caught that in editing that is like, that's the wrong word. I did not mean to say that. But it was there, and it didn't change the message. So it wasn't worth going back and re-recording a correction and putting it in when, yes, that detail was wrong.
No, that's all right. Coaches always tell you to give 110% anyway.
And I often do the same thing with misspeaks. I will sometimes delete them, but often that makes the conversation not flow. And it's...
And we do love to ramble on, don't we?
We do. Like I'm doing right now. And we got audio via SpeakPipe from Raymond.
Oh my gosh, it is Christmas.
Hello to the cast and crew of the Atheist Nomads. One time I heard the term Homo economicus, and it was defined to me as a person who seeks the most value for the money that he spends. So there is no reason to spend money on something that you can get for free. But your show is my exception. You have a great show that I would truly miss if no longer produced. So please find a PayPal donation to you, and thank you again for the time and effort you put into making this quality show. And to everybody else, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Aww.
Thank you.
Tears. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. It definitely helps. With the holidays and Kylie's birthday falling in the holidays, and the web hosting bill being due literally yesterday. It helps.
And the sentiment, the fact that there are so many things that you can get for free that are constantly asking you for money that you typically just ignore. Wikipedia, DuckDuckGo. I mean, it's constant right now. And the fact that you chose to put a little bit of money in towards us, that's special. That means a lot to us. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And it's not hyperbole to say that if not for the generosity of our listeners, the show would not have survived. Quite literally, when I had lost my job in 2013, if not for listeners picking up the expenses, I would have had to stop the show. And listeners supporting the show allowed that to continue.
And God knows what hobby he would have picked up. I do not want him to start doing ham radio, guys.
And then since then, it's been, when I've been having to look at finances and seeing where could we or should we make a cut, the podcast is not that. It's actively, positively benefiting our budget, which provides incredible holding power. And is literally a very big part in why the podcast has continued.
Yeah.
So it is always appreciated, and thank you so much for your support. And that wraps it up for this week. So happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. There will be another episode before New Year's, but
happy
if you don't...
last day of Hanukkah?
No, that was last week's episode.
Oh, dang it. That was last... Oh, I knew that.
Yeah. And Kwanzaa is still coming up.
Happy Kwanzaa. No, wait. Yes, Kwanzaa is coming up.
And Boxing Day. And anyway, happy holidays. And until next week, remember, not all those who wander are lost.
Love you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/atheistnomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads. All right, that's it for the live stream. Thank you so much, both of you, for watching. Bye. Mm-hmm.